Welcome to 13 Degrees of Screams,
where we screen so you don't scream.
We're your host, Alex.
And Stephanie.
And this week, we try not to get kidnapped in Speak No Evil.
It's more like try to get kidnapped.
Do we want to be kidnapped by them?
I think they're trying really hard to be. They keep coming back.
I know.
Before we get started, make sure you subscribe and click the bell to be notified when we post new episodes.
Speak No Evil is a 2024 American psychological horror thriller film written and directed by James Watkins. A remake of the 2022 Danish-Dutch film of the same name, the plot follows an American family who are invited to stay at a remote farmhouse of a British couple for the weekend, and the hosts soon begin to test the limits of their guests as the situation escalates. On Rotten Tomatoes, it has 83% with a critical consensus that states, "Harnessing sick suspense from the glimmer in James McAvoy's eye, Speak No Evil is a rare remake that hushes up concerns of been there, done that." It also has an 84% audience score.
During their vacation in Italy, the American Dalton family, Louise, Ben, and their 11-year-old daughter Agnes meet the British couple Patty and Sierra along with their son Ant. Back in London, the Daltons struggle with Ben's unemployment and Louise's infidelity. So when they receive an invitation from Patty and Sierra to visit their remote farmhouse in Devon, the Daltons accept, hoping a change of scenery will be beneficial to their daughter Agnes, who suffers from anxiety and has a strong attachment to her stuffed bunny Hoppy. However, as eerie occurrences multiply and the host's behavior becomes increasingly menacing, the family finds their friendly visit turning into something more sinister. Each day brings about more unease with their supposed friends, and the Daltons must navigate a web of deceit and danger to ensure their survival and escape this chilling trap. We are about to get into major spoilers for the rest of the film. If you would like to skip that, please go to 31 minutes and 12 seconds to go to our ratings. Upon arriving in Devon, Louise, Ben, and Agnes receive a warm welcome from Sierra, Patty, and Ant. However, as they spend more time together, they become increasingly uneasy due to Patty's strange behavior, which frequently crosses their boundaries. So we can go back and forth with all these examples about Patty being just like the weirdest host that ever could imagine.
Right.
So there's the vegetarianism. Louise is a very adamant vegetarian, not like just only on the weekends, very strict.
Yeah.
And regimented and tells them up front, even like when they're on vacation before they even came to their house, it's like, yeah, vegetarian. And so to make her uncomfortable, it's like clear that they know. They still remember. They butcher a goose from their farm, and they're like, "This is our best goose. She was regal. She was the best goose that ever was a goose, and now you must eat her."
It was lovely. She was curing cancer. She was at the forefront of this technology, and we killed her.
Yeah,
just imagine a goose just doing all this research about to solve world hunger.
Data entry.
Data entry. That's the last thing this goose is doing.
Oh yeah. So yeah, they kind of force Louise to try this goose after all this time that she's gone vegetarian. We don't know. It's been several years at least. So that's one. And then two, they go to dinner on a separate occasion. And because I didn't want to have to flash back and forth between all of these uncomfortable moments where it's just like, why would you do that?
Right. Yeah.
They go to dinner on a separate night, and Patty is, I guess, noticeably older than Sierra. At one point, they mentioned that they've been together for 17 years, and everyone kind of double takes at the table, oh, you look like you were 17 yesterday.
Doing the math in your head. I'm like, wait a minute. I mean, not to jump ahead in the plot, but that does, there is a full circle moment with that. So you're like,
yeah, just keep that in mind.
Right.
So, and then they start talking about their sex life and that they're doing it every day. And then Sierra,
good for them.
I guess, to each your own, but I wouldn't even say that they're friends yet. They're just kind of visiting, seeing where this friendship may go kind of thing. Honestly, Charlie and I kept looking back and forth at each other we would have never been here. We would have never done this.
Right. Well, yeah, to start off, I would not go to someone's house to begin with that I barely knew. I'm sure that's what you also thought.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't happen, period, outside of the weird stuff they started doing. I will say, to the whole vegetarian thing, we know that he knows.
Yes.
However, I could see someone just forgetting that someone was a
Right.
vegetarian. So like that, I was like, okay, but I know you know, but
Yes.
and then as far as the openness that they are, I struggle with that
Exhibiting.
because like some people are just like more naturally comfortable with that, whereas like we're not. So
Yeah.
I could see that happening, but it's just like the difference of comfortability between like our culture, quote unquote, and like what they're used to, kind of a thing.
I guess. And there's a difference between like, each couple's comfortability with PDA and like what they're doing, but it's still rude basically to assume that your friends that you've invited to stay with you would want to see your wife perform
Yeah.
fellatio on you. And you're just like, yeah, that's our life.
Well, okay. Let me just preface this by saying, like, yes, in my perspective, that was very rude, and I would not do that. However, again, if we're going back to cultural norms and cultural differences, they would not think that to be rude. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, to us, we're like, yeah, it's obvious, like, don't do something like that.
Yeah,
But to them, it's not, you know.
I guess.
So
I don't know. I just
it's hard because
I don't know what the
they're doing
culture
it.
difference though here is. It's like they're
Hmm.
all white people. They're all like Europeans. It's not like or European descent. So and like Ben and Louise are living in London right now. Like they were American. They did come
Hmm.
from America, but I I don't know.
Yeah. Well, also, God, when you talk about culture, you also have to define culture because there's like societal culture, but then there's also like family, immediate group culture. We
Yeah.
could talk about this at length about like what this means, but not to go too far into it. But just know that they know what they're doing. So it's
Yes.
not even this discussion really doesn't even need to
Pointless.
happen, right? Because they know what they're doing. But
Yeah.
all that to say is, at first, like in Ben and Louise's shoes, I could kind of see them like, oh, let's just like hold off. Let's just see like what's
Let
going on
them
because
do their thing. Yeah.
yeah, because I like me. If I put myself in their shoes, I would probably be similar in that thought. Like at some point, I'd have to put my comfortability before that, even if they're not trying to do it. I'd be
Yeah.
like, I'm sorry, I can't do this anymore. So I think Ben and Louise I think it was realistic that they stuck around for a little bit still. So,
Oh, yeah. Like, I wouldn't say that this is the moment they should get out of the house or anything. This is
mhm.
just odd at this point.
Yeah,
There
for sure.
is like a moment too where they're having a argument about Louise's infidelity in their little room, and the door is open or ajar or something like that, which I'm like, oh, I wouldn't do that either. But then they cut back to like them hugging on the bed, and Patty is like watching through the window of their door, like just like and to the point where I'm like, how do you not see that, man? Like, just like nose pressed up against the window.
They were like facing this way and the door was like there. So I don't know. Also,
I feel
if
like
you,
Louise should have seen it. But
yeah, she should have. The doors are like so thin in that house too. I'm like, I would just not have any of these conversations anywhere
yeah,
near these people.
right, right. So yeah, there's just like this level of uncomfortability that they can keep on pushing to. Like sometimes Sierra enters their room without knocking and stuff like that. Just like, hey, what's up? Like in And I
You're
think they're trying to put off the persona of just being like little farm folk, like, like we are not big city people. We don't have these manners about
ring a ding a dinger. What do we
right.
do? I hate that trope. I'm so over that trope.
Yes. Louise is particularly troubled by Patty and Sierra's harsh treatment of Ant, who has a condition that affects his ability to speak. And they mentioned it on vacation, too, because that was one of the reasons, they ended up hanging out together. They both have kids around the same age. But Ant has like this small tongue condition, they say.
Bitch, I
And
clocked that immediately. I was like, no, we
right.
don't. Come on.
He seems fine. But yeah. So he doesn't speak. And they're like, we really want him to have friends because, he's disabled and all this. But when they get to the house, Aunt like sleeps in like an attic bedroom. There's like no like defining features that this is a child's bedroom except that there's a bed. And then
Mhm.
they give Agnes like a little mattress on the floor. It's like just like a mattress topper. It's very small.
Yeah.
And they're like, we made a little bed for her. And like, this is Aunt's room. They can bunk together. I'm like, also no.
Okay.
Yeah.
That mattress topper, they might as well have just put some newspaper on the ground. And like, here you
Some
go.
hay
Here's a
from
little
the
bed. Yeah.
barn.
Here you go. She likes that, right? That's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah. So, and then when they send the kids to bed, like Aunt's like screaming in the background. Like they're like, should we check on him? Is he okay? And they're like, no, that's just part of his condition. Like,
Okay.
and then like Patty like times the moment that he'll fall asleep, and I'm like, maybe they drugged this kid because like, why would you know exactly the moment he would like just exhaust himself and fall asleep?
Right. I mean, that is a possibility. I didn't think about that part.
Yeah. One evening, the adults go out for dinner, leaving Agnes and Aunt in the care of a babysitter that they have basically claimed he is not there legally. Like they threaten if anything funny happens, they'll deport him.
I was like, damn, oh my God.
But it is a strange man too, and like you barely know this family, so then to have like your kids be watched by a stranger's friend is like, no, that's not happening.
Right. I'd be curious though, because you know how like I wouldn't, but like people hire a babysitter that they've like never met before. Is that like the same deal? Like you're taking a chance either way. Like if you were to do this yourself versus this dude, I don't know.
I guess so, but like most people, I feel like that can do that nowadays, not like in the old time, obviously, but like compared to like newspaper ads, like if you went on like a nanny website or something, you could possibly look at background checks and kind of get references that way. It's still like a shot in the dark too. You never know if that's all fabricated, but
right.
A little bit more, you would think, security compared to just this man off the street is going to watch the kids now.
Yeah, he's like, trust me, he's watching my kid. I think that also did gain them a little bit of trust, like, because they are putting Aunt in that situation too. So like, okay, well, if they're comfortable with Aunt being watched by him, then like, why would I worry?
Yeah, I guess
I wouldn't.
so.
Like I said, I will not do this, but
right. But they're like clearly uncomfortable, but they're like, all right, well, we'll go and do this dinner. And that's where all the weird stuff happens under the table. But back at the house, while playing hide and seek, Aunt shows Agnes a collection of watches and a message written in Danish, but she cannot understand it. Later, Louise discovers Agnes has been moved to share a bed with a drunken Patty and Sierra. Horrified, Louise decides to leave with her family, but they are forced to return when Agnes has a panic attack about leaving her stuffed bunny behind.
Fucking Hoppy, whatever the fuck this rabbit's name is the problem. It is the cause of so many issues in this movie.
Right?
Leave the rabbit.
Yeah. Like, if you have any indication that you think that your kid's being abused in that nature, like, you know, that's at least what she's assuming. She's in their bed. And I don't know, like, you can get her another rabbit. I told Charlie I would rather take her to the hospital and be like, she needs something to calm down because like we cannot go back.
No, I'd be like, yeah, no, Hoppy's just staying another day. Like Hoppy will come back, like, and buy her a new Hoppy and then be done with it. Like I would just come up with a story about this rabbit because there's no way I'm going back to that house.
Yes.
And like, what? Sorry. I was just like so angry at this part. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yes. And for like, she is 11. So, and that's a big issue with the family, at least with the dad. He thinks that it's like, she's way too old to have like an attachment toy and to be like this anxious whenever she's separated from it. Like she introduces it to people and stuff like that. Like, this is Happy. Like, this is another member of the family, which, I mean, cool if that's what you need. But I feel like at this age, too, she needs to be more responsible about having her attachment toy. Like, she can't be like a 4-year-old and be like, well, I left my toy and now it's your problem.
Right. This is a good moment to teach consequences. Okay. We're going to turn this into a learning moment because I'm sorry. Like, you're just going to have your little episode and we're going.
Yeah. Like I said, I think I'd rather have her sedated at a hospital to get past this than to go back to whatever that was.
Yeah. No.
But they go back and, you know, they all had left in the middle of the night, but now they have retrieved Hoppy and like basically broken back into their house, and Patty and Sierra are like, why'd you leave? What are you doing? Like,
Yeah. What's going on? He
and
says, "Bye."
Louise is like, tell him what happened. And Ben is like, well, we don't really know. We just wanted to leave because Agnes is uncomfortable in the bed in Aunt's room and just wants her own bed. And Louise is like, no. She was in your bed with you guys. Like, no, that's not okay.
Right. Yeah. I'm like, finally, someone's just like saying it. Like, come on.
And I want to hit Ben at this point. Like, he is being way too nice and forgiving for any sort of crossing of boundaries at this point.
Right. Like, I understand being conflict avoidant, but there's a line at some point you just need to be like, okay, this is not okay. And he's just like, it's fine, girl.
It's fine. Like, to the point where I'm like, I mean, are you and Patty a thing? Like, are you going to run off with Patty? Because I think I should suggest this because you're the only one that seems okay here.
Yeah. Patty and Sierra were talking about how they were basically swingers. I'm like, they're going to try to get with the other couple, but like male, female, because Patty's got something for Ben, and I'm sure Ben has something for Patty at this point because he just lets him do whatever.
Yeah, no, every time. And I guess he's just that desperate to have like a bro friend that he's just like, whatever he does is fine. He's much cooler than I, kind of thing. But so Sierra kind of like brushes this under the rug because she tells them that she had a child that died in infancy, and that's why she had brought Agnes into her room. She was crying and no one came to get her. So I don't know how she picked up an 11-year-old and like scooped her into her room, or Agnes willingly went in there, but I don't know.
Sierra's very strong, okay?
Yeah, I guess so. She's maybe like only a head taller than Agnes. She's very small.
But she's dense, and that's what counts.
Yeah. So ultimately, like, they just kind of let it go as like this weird not arrangement, but this weird incident, and look past it and agree to stay. Honestly, even if it was like, we're all good, they already had the car packed, and like, I'm not going to come back into your house to stay another day at this point if we were going to leave.
Yeah, I'd be like, you know what, sorry that happened for the miscommunication, but, you know, we just got to go. Like
we can see your chickens or something, but after that we got to go or whatever.
Yeah, like, you know, we're not going to stay. Like, whatever you want to show us, do that, and we're just going to
we're just going to head out after that because, we got our stuff. So... After an incident where Patty throws a chunk of cheese at Aunt steals a set of keys and leads Agnes to a locked shed. Inside, they find luggage and personal belongings from various families. Using a photo album, Aunt reveals to Agnes that Patty and Sierra are serial killers who lure families to their farmhouse, rob and kill them, and cut out their children's tongues to use them as lures for their next victims.
You know what? I feel like I kind of knew what was going on, like, midway through. Did you get the sense of like, yeah, this is what's happening? I
had watched a review about it like several months before, so yeah, I kind of knew at this point. I can't help it sometimes. I was just
you just ruined the movie for yourself.
I know.
Oh man,
welcome to my mind.
No, that's fair. Yeah, as soon as once they saw the watches, and then again, I knew immediately, like, Aunt's tongue was cut out. Like, he doesn't have a small tongue, okay? Like, I know what's going on.
He stops Ben in one night and then, like, tries to show him, like, I have no tongue. Like,
yeah, he's like, this is not small. It's gone.
It's not a small tongue. It's no tongue.
Right. And then when Sierra was kind of mothering Agnes, and she was like telling her what to do, I'm like, oh my God, they're trying to take Agnes. Like,
right.
So I was like, oh my God, I'm so shocked. I just felt like it was kind of pieced together by that point.
Yeah. It's a very slow burn, I think, because of how long it takes to get to this moment where they reveal, like, oh yeah, obviously something's happening here. This is not just your stereotypical family. And also, too, like, Patty with this throwing cheese at Aunt situation was very uncomfortable as well. He wants Aunt to dance with Agnes to the Cotton Eye Joe song, and I don't know if Aunt's just never heard the song. Maybe he just has no rhythm. Either way, he's a child, so it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not dancing in time with Agnes, and he's like practically like abusing him in front of everyone.
Yeah. He's pissed. He's like,
Mhm.
march or dance in time. Like, what are you doing?
You're
You
ruining
idiot.
the song. Like, what? No. So Aunt shows Agnes that this has happened to him and his family, and that Patty and Sierra intend to make the Daltons their next victims. Agnes fakes having her period and manages to get Louise and Ben alone to explain the situation. At their wits' end, the family decides to leave calmly to avoid arousing suspicion and contact the police to save Aunt. So Agnes in for the win. Like, she can't remember her bunny, but she can figure out how to fake her period.
I know. I was going to say, this girl is smart as fuck because I was like, okay, it worked perfectly. Like, I don't know. That was such a good idea.
Question it at all. And I was like, I don't know if I would have thought of that on the fly. I'm like,
no, there's no way in hell I wouldn't have. I would have just been like, Mom, I need to talk to you. I would have no reason. And she was like, let's do this.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was
but
awesome.
Again, I like, good for her, but still like just like a switch of character compared to always forgetting this bunny that she loves so much.
Hey, you know what? She's really smart in one way, but just very forgetful.
Yeah. Realizing their plan has been discovered, Patty and Sierra sabotage the Daltons' car and hide Agnes's bunny to delay them, subtly mocking them as they do so. When the Daltons finally drive off, Patty throws Aunt, who cannot swim, into a pond. Ben rescues Aunt before a gun-wielding Patty and Sierra capture them and force them to transfer their savings before preparing to kill them and cut out Agnes's tongue. However, the Daltons immediately fight back, with Louise attacking and injuring Patty, allowing the Daltons and Aunt to flee into the house. I was like, why are we going into the house?
I know. Every time, like, you could have just run into the wilderness and they won't find you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they just wanted to hide somewhere, and I'm just like, stop going to the house.
Yeah. I don't know why you would do this, but I guess maybe just because they are so far away from any sort of neighbors and isolated, like, there's no guarantee they'd make it to somewhere else. But I think anywhere is better than this.
So say you don't have to make it far. You just have to like hide long enough for them to, either leave at some point or something.
But I will say they are redirected when the guy that comes back he was the guy that was at the restaurant. Like, they had opened this restaurant specifically for them. And I was like, this is just some weird friend of theirs. This isn't a restaurant.
Yeah, this is a house. Like,
yeah, this is someone's house. But he comes to like meet them at the end of the driveway when they're trying to leave. So that kind of like forces them back. But still, wouldn't choose the house. Would just run on feet compared to that.
Exactly.
A stunned and enraged Patty, Sierra, and their accomplice Mike hunt for them. In the ensuing chase and struggle, Louise kills Mike and saves Ben before the family flees to the roof. Sierra attempts to attack them, but ultimately falls to her death. Interesting thing with Sierra, too, when they first kind of like take control and subdue Patty momentarily, Sierra like calls after them, like, no, take me with you. I was his first. And like, I was Agnes's age. And we were like, oh, which I mean, I guess that makes sense because he does kind of get like this light in his eye when the family ends up telling him that Agnes started her period. Like, oh, you're a woman now.
I was like, no. Oh, I hated that.
Yeah. And so I guess he stole her at one point, and then Sierra was the one after, however many years wanted a child. And this is how they get the children.
Yeah, at that point, like, yeah, you were a victim at some point, but now you are no longer that victim. And I'm sorry, but you have to die now.
I don't know if that was like her Hail Mary pass or something for a second, just to be like, no, take me with you, and then I'll like thwart whatever you're up to, or, just a momentary lapse of like, oh yeah, by the way, I was a victim too.
No, that was definitely her trying to gain sympathy, and she was going to be like, psych, and like shank him. Like, there's no way.
Yeah, she seems to enjoy being in this position too much at this point. As the family attempts to escape, Patty emerges holding Agnes at gunpoint. Agnes injects Patty with a syringe of ketamine, incapacitating him. As the family departs, Aunt approaches a now powerless Patty, and he acknowledges his fate by saying to Aunt, "That's my boy," and an enraged Aunt beats him to death with a brick while having a mental breakdown. The family and Aunt leave the farmhouse. On the drive, Agnes gives her stuffed bunny to Aunt, who sobs quietly. Yeah.
Yee!
The end.
Louise was just gonna let him go too. And we're
hmm
like, double
Ben,
tap,
Ben
kill
too.
him. Yeah, well, yeah, all of them. And then Ant's like, oh, fuck this. And he
No.
grabs that brick and he goes to town.
Yes.
I'm like, thank God, because he was just gonna get up. I'm like, what are you doing? You need to kill
Right.
him.
And then there's no saying that he would stop, too. Like, it sounds like when they were talking about Sierra, like, over mothering Agnes, Patty makes up this excuse, or at least says this excuse that she grew up in, like, a foster care system, so they were
Mhm.
all parenting each other. And I'm like, I bet he just grabbed her off the street, basically, and we're like, well, now you're my wife.
Yeah.
So there's no saying that he wouldn't go and do that again. And that's what he had planned for Agnes. He was like, well, Sierra's dead, so now she's the only one left to take care of me.
Yeah.
Mm,
He
like,
he doesn't need someone else to do this. Like, he could do it by himself.
yeah, that's also true.
I don't know. It just is so frustrating. Also, Louise had killed everyone else in this movie so far.
I
She
was so
was like the
disappointed in
MVP.
Ben the whole time. I was like, protect your family, man. Like,
I love the point where like Ben's like, I don't know, I can't do this. What's going on? And Louise is like, pull it together, man. Like, you need to get it together. We're going to die. And she was
yeah.
just like such a badass at this last moment.
Right. There's like one point too where the accomplice has like Ben's head like over like some shattered glass like sticking
Mm-hmm.
up, so like it would like have impaled him.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just kind of like, well, this might as well happen. Like until Louise came in and killed the guy behind him. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what are you doing? Like,
And it's one of those things, is like, not to play into gendered stereotypes. Like, we shouldn't, like, great for Louise for being a badass woman, but like, we shouldn't be surprised by that. Like, yeah, of course a woman could be like badass, and like, yeah, sure,
yes.
maybe Ben is more emotional, and you know what I'm saying? But, traditionally it's like the man needs to be the protector.
Yeah, it wasn't even like gender norms to
Mm-hmm.
me. It was more or less like he was the one that let all of this happen. Like it was
Right, yeah.
really all of Ben's concessions that like allowed them to stay, that had them turning around and stuff like that. Like he should have just put his foot down and said no.
Right,
And
yeah.
even at the end, he can't, stomp them out and be like, this shouldn't have happened. So
Right.
for him never to make that turnaround is kind of disappointing to me.
I know. Well, some characters don't grow, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, again, I don't know how I would be in that situation. I would hope I'd be able to like get it together, but like, who knows? I might also crumble. Like, it's hard to say, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's very frustrating that Ben just kind of just sits there and takes it. So I was like,
Yeah.
come on, man.
It was just disappointing on that end. And this is a remake too. And I heard in the original, like Patty succeeds. Patty
Mm-hmm.
succeeds in taking Agnes and like kills the parents in front of her, and they just drive off.
Yeah, there was not to go too much into the original, but a lot of people were just, the movie's so bleak that they didn't want to like fix it per se, but they wanted to offer a different, happier ending. Yeah, because in the original they die and they get like pushed into like a gorge kind of situation, and yeah, they succeed, and I'm like,
No.
I'm glad we watched this one.
Yeah,
Because this was enough.
the original seemed very bleak, but I mean, they really draw this out too. Like it feels like at first when they get there, I'm like, okay, so they're staying with them for a weekend or maybe a night or two or something like that. No, it seems to stretch out forever. It's like, now we live here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm like, what day is it? I don't even know anymore.
I'm like, go home.
We've had enough.
So, yeah, but I am glad we watched this version in comparison, because that would have been super sad. And I forgot, too, that the plan was to kill Aunt, like to replace Aunt with Agnes. I thought, they would just add another kid and just get rid of the parents, but that doesn't work for them.
Nope. Got a new model. Need a new model every time.
I'm guessing it's like the right number of people to like approach other couples with another child on vacation kind of thing. Like if it was just a guy, people would be like, no, you're a strange man. We don't want you hanging about our family, being a third wheel or whatever. Mm-hmm. But then when you have like somebody for each member of the family, it just, I guess, makes more sense.
Right. And like you see, a couple and a kid, they're more approachable. It's like, okay, like,
yeah.
but it was just a guy. I don't know about that.
Yeah, that's why I think he would need to continue with Agnes or another girl
Hmm.
without Sierra, you know?
Right. Well, the age gap is even bigger now, so like, ew,
Yeah, yeah.
no.
Well, he probably would have taken Agnes and been like, this is my daughter for several years until, you know.
Yeah. Well, I part of me thinks he would say it's his daughter, but I'm also would not also be surprised if he takes her as his wife because he's like once
Oh, no,
Sierra.
oh, for sure. I agree. I think he would take her as his wife. It would just be like to the outside to get
Oh
people
yeah, okay,
looped in. He'd be like, yeah, this is my daughter. But then once they
gotcha.
got to the house, he'd be doing all kinds of weird shit with her.
Oh, okay, got it. All right, yeah, agreed, 100% agreed.
Yeah. Speak No Evil is a powerful example of human behavior and relationships against the dark aspect of human nature. The Daltons struggle with anxieties and trust within their own family dynamic and mask those insecurities by allowing their boundaries to be pushed to maintain normalcy. But this only opens them up to be exploited by Patty and Sarah, who push them further and further to exhibit their control over them. Ultimately, this is a test of inner strength and the length one will go to protect their loved ones in the face of adversity.
All right, first up, what did you have for suspense?
I had a 2.
A two. Okay, okay.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I was scared for the family, but they really drag it out. Like, when we had like 20, 30 minutes left, like, we were kind of like, oh, it's not over yet. It's
Mm-hmm.
still going. And it kind of almost feels like you're in this endless loop of like, well, if like they don't really attack them and try to kill them at this point, it's just going to be like a continuous account of awkward encounters.
Mm-hmm. Okay, okay.
How about you?
Oh, a 5.
A 5?
I had it as a 3. I
We
found
don't even
this.
have 5. Like, no kidding.
I know. Yeah, it was because I knew kind of like where it was leading to. It was just like every little reaction just made it more tense for me. Like the awkwardness alone, like different than the whole attack scene. Like just every little
Yeah.
thing, you're like, what are they getting at? What are they doing? And it just like ramped up and it just like felt uncomfortable the entire time of this movie. So it just felt constant. So I had to give it the 3. I was very stressed by the end of this movie.
Yes. And it is so funny too, like how many times like every weird interaction happens or situation, and then you turn to the person you're watching with, or you like think internally like, no, I would say no to that. But
Hmm.
then you also have to wonder, like, in this situation, would you really let that go
Hmm.
just because, it's uncomfortable to say otherwise?
Right. Yeah, they're a little weird, but like
Yeah.
at what point would I be like, all right, deuces, I gotta go. So
Right.
putting myself in those shoes, it's hard and it's a very stressful. It's like when you're like hanging out with someone or you meet someone new for the first time and they just say some like really off the wall things and you're like, okay, I just kind of want to walk away now, but
Yeah.
it's like for days is what I
Right.
felt like.
Yeah, now you're stuck here. You have to sit
Hmm.
here through it. So yeah, it's like the ultimate, like, how do I leave this conversation?
Right. And like I struggle with that on one-on-one basis for 5 minutes, let alone multiple days. So
Right.
yeah, it was just very uncomfortable to watch.
Yes. What did you have for atmosphere?
Oh, I gave it a 1. Honestly, I mean, the house is so quaint. Like I would like to go there. Someone mentioned in the movie a digital detox. I'm like, yes. Like that's lovely. So I think the farmhouse setting, I think it looks nice. The only reason I gave it actually a point is because it is secluded.
Mm-hmm.
So if I felt more connected with, anyone at least a little bit close, it would be less scary, but the setting itself isn't scary. Outside of also the bunker where they find like all the people's stuff that they took after they
Yeah.
killed them. So that gave it also a little bit of a bump up. But the house itself is not scary.
Yeah. I gave it a 1 because it had like that compound vibe when they drove
Mm,
up. But I mean, that was like the red flag of the property, I guess. The only other thing that was concerning, aside from all the luggage and stuff in that one room, but that's kind of hidden away, is that after they know that they're going to be killed,
Hmm.
Patty says to Aunt, like, you'll join your family in the pond soon enough or something like that. So I'm like, oh, all of the dead bodies are in the pond? Like,
That you're gonna run out of room in that pond. It's not
it's
a
not a
huge
big
pond,
pond. No.
right? Like you, and then also Ben was like in there in the
Yeah.
pond with the dead body.
Yeah, because they threw Aunt into the pond to get him to come back when they're trying to leave. Like, no.
Swimming with dead bodies. No,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Nope,
No,
nope,
thank
nope.
you. What did you have for plot?
I had it as a 2. I
Okay.
thought, like, it's a good premise and everything, but it was just really stretched out for how long it was. And it just baffled me every time that, like, they were on the brink of leaving or they had left and they came back.
Mm-hmm. Oh God, it was so frustrating because also not different topic, but like I know the one character mentioned like why do you play with your food? Because really they could have just killed Ben and Louise in their sleep or something, and this could have all
Yeah.
been just like taken care of. But no, they stretch it out and torment these people.
Right, right. And I think it's like internally, they really do think that they're like doing some sort of psychology for them, like therapy, because they want them to be honest with them, with each
Hmm.
other, to the point where Louise is so desperate to leave. At one point, she was like, "We'll never see you again because we're gonna get a divorce," and
Hmm.
I don't blame her, honestly. Like it wasn't great that she was unfaithful, but after seeing how Ben behaves throughout this whole movie, I'd be like, "Yeah, I wouldn't want him either."
Do you think she meant that, or she was just saying that so that she could
I
leave?
kind of feel like it might be true
Oh,
based on
really?
how it turned out.
I thought she was just saying that,
Uh,
honestly.
when she said it, I thought maybe a lie, but now after the fact, especially that Ben didn't like hold his own to help
Hmm.
get them out, and Louise did all the work. Like, I feel like it's a little bit more true now.
Yeah, they have a lot to go through. I mean, they're probably gonna get a divorce after that trauma, but
Yes,
I think in the moment she was just saying that.
right. How about you for plot?
I had it. I struggled with this one, but I ultimately gave it a 3, mostly because of the whole child aspect of it. Like if it was just a normal, because it's kind of like a reverse home invasion movie where they invade the house, but it's like not their house.
Yeah,
But the child aspects of like Sierra being a child wife basically at one point, and then Aunt is going to die, and like all the children
to
dying. Like
replace him. Yeah,
so that bumped it up to the 3 for me because like the plot itself is fairly it's not too unique, I would say, but the whole like aspects with the children just bump that up for me. It's just like one of those things like let's not go there. Like if once you fuck with a child, like that's a
yeah.
lot. So I just gave it the full 3. I was really struggling between the 2 and 3, so
Honestly, I think if we would have had the darker ending, like in the original, I probably would have given it the 3 too, because I'm like, I can't believe you killed a kid. Like, like that's
right.
against the rules. Like,
Yeah. But it's one of those things that's like in the movie like Aunt survived, but they did kill so many other kids in the past, so they still
that
did
is
it. We
true.
just didn't see it. So I was like, I
Yeah,
still got to factor that into the
right.
overall story. So that's how I got the 3. But I did struggle. I almost gave it a 2, but I was like, we'll give it a 3.
Yeah. For me, it was just the dragging it out thing too. That it just, I think if it would have been a little tighter, then yeah, would have given it the 3. But
Yeah. What did you give our villains?
I gave them a 2. I think they do have a charisma about them, but it's it's not as like I'll just listen to whatever you say kind of thing. Like, and I do think too, especially in my American perspective, we live such different lives from Europeans sometimes that
Hmm.
like we get kind of like almost starstruck. We're like, oh, tell us about your quaint little home in the country, and like speak to us in that accent. We love it.
Yeah.
And so I can see kind of how that like allure comes, but they've already been living in London for I don't know however long
Right.
too. I think they would be a little disenchanted there, but
Well, I will say London is like, a big city, and they even mention like how they live
they
in
don't really
those.
know anyone.
Yeah, they live like right across the like hallway from somebody because it's an apartment. Versus like they're like, do you have any neighbors at all? Like so,
Yeah.
even though they're in Europe, it's still a completely different like lifestyle.
Right. But the reason I didn't give him like the full 3, at least Patty, is just because of like there's always that underlying aggression, even when he is coming across as more like charming.
Mm-hmm.
There's always like that underlying like rage.
Mm-hmm.
And we see it especially with his interactions with Ant. He just kind of like pulls him up and slings him over his shoulder kind of aggressively. And he's like, yeah, we're doing piggyback. And doesn't seem like they're having a fun time.
Right.
So, yeah, I feel like you could kind of get the red flag off of him pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also gave it a 2 for actually very similar reasons. I feel like a really scary character, especially if it's like just a human, right? Is if they stay so calm and calculated, that makes it scarier. Because I know, not to bring up an old episode, but when we talked about Heretic, I think we both gave him a
That's
3.
what I was thinking too. Like
It was
he
like,
is
yeah,
always the same note kind of thing. Very
Yeah.
charming.
Because I'm like, okay, we gave this older man a 3, but why aren't we giving Patty, a more formidable man, really, a 2? And in my eyes, I feel like Patty is almost a little bit more predictable. You could, once he goes off, okay, like now we know what we're dealing with. Whereas like there's a little bit more of an unknown when the character kind of keeps it in. Patty just flies off the rails, which is still scary, but it's okay. It's like, okay, now we know we have to fight for our life. We're not like constantly guessing what's going to happen next.
Yeah, you can like see the pattern. And then with the Hugh Grant character in Heretic, like he could stab you and the whole time you'll just be like, and then the gospel said that. Like, so
is this true? Like, am I supposed to be dying right now? Like, you wouldn't question yourself, but Patty, you're like, this guy's just crazy.
Yeah, no. Did you give the movie your extra point?
I did. I really liked this movie, actually. I enjoyed it a lot. And yeah, I thought it was effective for sure. Like it stressed me out. And yeah, I just gave it the 1 point. I just thought it deserved it.
Yeah, I agree. I gave it the 1 as well. I thought unique concept in the way of like bringing this family into their home and making them so uncomfortable. All of these concessions that they make to keep the interactions pleasant and stuff like that. I think it's overall like it builds nicely, aside from like when it gets to that little ending spot, but it builds nicely for how much they'll agree to before it's too late. And the setting's very quaint. I don't know. Scotland and England will always get the special point, I think, for me.
This is a shitty movie, but it's in Scotland, so it gets a point.
Yeah. I love that charm.
Whatever works for you.
Yes.
So if we add that all together, you gave this movie an 8, and I had it as a 10.
Sounds good.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoy the show and listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, giving us a 5-star rating is super helpful, and we always appreciate it. If you are watching the YouTube version, you can like and comment on this video, and you can always let us know what you would like us to cover next.
You can find us on social media using 13 Degrees of Screams.
This has been 13 Degrees of Screams, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.